Today I have a brand new, to me, GPU that I'm taking a look at. This is the GTX 970 here in early 2022. I basically just want to find out whether this thing can still hold its own in 1080p gaming, or are you just out of luck on the GPU market, even considering that this isn't actually that affordable, especially when you consider it's almost 8 years old. Now, before I get into today's video, I do want to make mention that AMD and Nvidia have both announced new budget-end GPUs, and by budget, I mean like $250-ish GPUs. So if you are thinking about buying a used GPU right now, as of the time of publishing, I would actually recommend waiting just a little bit longer. And the reason for that is really simple. You may actually be able to get a little bit fortunate and be able to get like a Newegg shuffle to drop your way when those new cards do launch. It does seem like maybe there's a little bit more volume with brand new cards when they first launch. After that, you might not really be all that lucky to get a card, in which case maybe you just do go the used GPU route, but I would hold off and try to get one of those cards on launch day because their performance is going to be way better than a 970. Regardless, if you are looking to buy one of these things, I will link it in the description down below in case you're looking at eBay for one of these 970s. With that said, it looks like right now you're probably going to pay a little bit over $200, though fingers crossed that availability for new GPUs is actually okay, or anything approaching okay would be amazing, and that price for the GTX 970 could start to fall. Now, later on this year, the GTX 970 does reach its 8th birthday. It was launched all the way back in September of 2014 to a lot of fanfare initially, and then it got hit with that whole 4GB versus 3.5GB VRAM sort of controversy. The gist of it, by the way, is you have 3.5GB of fast GDDR5 and the other 500 megabytes or so of video memory is more or less useless. That being said, it did launch at a price of $329 USD, and while it went way down for a while because, you know, it is a used GPU with only 4GB of VRAM, in recent months, especially in the past year, the price of used GTX 970s has popped back up to, again, that aforementioned $225 point. So it's definitely costing more right now than you would really hope an almost 8-year-old GPU would. So for the test bench today, we do have a Ryzen 7 5700G paired with 32GB of DDR4 memory running at 3200 megahertz. So now let's hop over into some of these games and see if you can still at least get away with a GTX 970 playing games at 1080p in 2022. Halo Infinite on the medium graphics preset is, well, it's okay. You do get over 30 FPS in pretty much any scenario, and you do see your FPS jump all the way up into the 50s, depending on exactly where you're looking and what you're doing at the time. Regardless, it is nice to see that the frame rate is very stable above 30 FPS, so I don't think you're going to have a problem playing this game, especially in single player mode. Now, if you're looking to be competitive in multiplayer mode, you may want to drop the settings down to get more frames out of it. That being said, you should still be able to have a pretty good time playing this game with this card here in 2022. Deathloop is another very interesting game that recently came out, and on the medium graphics preset, you get a pretty solid experience. No, you're not going to hit 60 FPS at 1080p if you're using the medium preset, but you are going to get pretty close, and if you really want that 60 FPS, you can probably get it by dropping settings down even further. Regardless, this is not an overly fast-paced game, so you should be just fine playing on medium settings and getting between 50 and 60 FPS in most cases. If you're one of the handful of people still playing Cyberpunk 2077, you might be able to play this game at least reasonable settings and have a reasonably good time. That is, if you actually enjoy the game itself. On the medium graphics preset, the average FPS tended to be in the low 30s. You would see frame rates jump up to the mid 30s sometimes, or sometimes even dip down into the high 20s. But if you drop settings down just a little bit further, you should be able to stabilize that frame rate firmly above 30 FPS. And at that point, it's really down to just whether or not you enjoy this game. I personally don't actually enjoy this game a whole lot, but hey, it is a demanding game, so we tested it. And finally, if you're into esports titles, this is actually a really good option for the money right now, especially if you can't get your hands on a brand new GPU. I just looked at Overwatch on the high graphics preset just to give you an indication of where esports titles tend to land, and this thing absolutely rocks with Overwatch. The average frame rate tended to be over 200 FPS, which is way more than enough to keep you perfectly competitive, and in fact, if it were me playing this game, I would either run it at a higher resolution yet than this, or I would just cap out my settings completely on the Ultra preset or something like that. Regardless, if you're into esports titles, this is going to be a pretty good experience for you. So the takeaway for the GTX 970 is actually a fairly simple one considering the current state of the market. If you can get your hands on a brand new GPU, that is almost unequivocally the way to go here. Even if it's significantly more expensive than the 970, you're just getting a better value because it's going to be much more future-proof. The GTX 970 is very clearly on its way out of being able to play 1080p games at medium settings or better here in 2022. Halo Infinite is really pushing its ability to stay well above 30 FPS, ditto for Cyberpunk. However, if you can't get your hands on a brand new GPU and you really just want to build a PC to get yourself up and running, and you're okay possibly flushing about $100 to $150 down the proverbial toilet in an effort to just get a stopgap solution, and by the way, I only say $100 to $150 because the reality is you're still going to be able to sell this thing if you do upgrade down the road. You just might not get currently what it is going for on the market. So if you buy it for like $225 now, you'll probably still be able to get $100 or $150 from it down the road. It will lose value from here on out, at least I would think so. But if it is your only route to getting onto the PC platform and that's your ultimate goal here, it's actually one of the better values on the market. It is still supported by Nvidia with current drivers, so you don't have to worry about driver headaches like you do with some of AMD's cards that would otherwise still be somewhat relevant cards. And for the most part, you can still play AAA titles at playable frame rates, though if you're looking for 60 FPS, some games might disappoint you. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. I am always interested to hear yours. Let me know in those comments down below if you are still running a GTX 970. How's it doing for you? Let us know in those comments down below. Otherwise, if you like the video, like it, share, subscribe. All those things are extremely helpful to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware, and as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.